Hey everybody, so we're going to do another Heresy Hump Day chat, and I have this one recorded ahead of time. I'm sitting here in Calgary, but if you're watching this when it's uploaded to YouTube, then I will be in North Carolina at the time. And so I'm just going to do a little bit of an end of the year, beginning of the year special, because it'll be likely after Christmas, but before New Year's when this comes out. And so I've kind of wanted to do this, just a bit of a reflection on the past year and things to look forward to in the next year as far as the hobby goes. I'm going to be doing a bit of a sponsored beer this evening. I have another one pulled from the Advent calendar. And really the topics from this year are going to be really those two things, like reflections on the past year of gaming, expectations for the next year of gaming, and that includes painting too. Usually will fall around that, you know, the hand in hand, in most cases, not all. But then I also am going to just throw in there Adeptus Titanicus is something to talk about, the Games Workshop game that has been announced in the past, and is something that will be coming forward in the future to being released. And so, I have not opened this yet. I hope this does not explode too much when I open this, but what I have today is a Baltic Porter, or Black Lager, 7.8%. It is made by Sound Brewery out of, I believe, Washington State. Looks like it's pronounced Paulsbo, Washington, on Viking Way, which is kind of cool. Sound Brewery. So I've never had this before. This was one of the beers in the Advent calendar. I believe this is today's beer. The last one that I did open yesterday had a huge foamy head and wanted to just explode all over, and I had to really let it calm down. So I'm a little gun shy tonight, but this one's actually fine. Most of these Advent calendar beers have been what they call strong beers, and the alcohol percentage has been a little high, and they've been kind of rich. Porters, lagers. Actually, this one I think is the first one, maybe the first one that was called a porter. I might have had one other. I really like a porter, actually, and so kind of happy to have another one. So yeah, Sound Brewery. We'll try that out. Very dark. Looks kind of like a lager, but it's fairly watery. It's not too creamy, kind of like a lager is. Nice. It's got I don't know if it's supposed to have a coffee. They didn't say on the bottle. Many of them will say like some of the highlighted ingredients and flavors, but this one definitely has a bit of a coffee kind of flavor. More so than maybe a little molasses. They oftentimes have that too, but this has a nice coffee flavor, which I actually kind of like. It's good. So I'm not going to do a table update today for the most part, because I've kind of shown some things recently, and I actually have some vids that I've done that I've already uploaded that'll be coming up before this one, and I don't normally do that stuff, and I don't want to get out of order. But I did have one thing that I haven't shown, and I have been just starting to work on some of my Savage core terrain, and so I put some plaster around a base I made, and this is an aquarium plant. But then I have some where I've done and tested some stalagmites. with plastic terrain. So I'm going to be doing some single structures with just stalagmites as well, but I kind of wanted to just start doing some Savage Core terrain, and yeah, so I have another one like that too, where I just kind of created a post and I used plaster and made like a stalagmite. Now I need to put some more plaster on there. This is sort of that first amount I put down. I used a paint and glue mixture of black just so if something was to happen to it, it was to get a little dang or something, it's not this white sort of dot. It doesn't show up as easily. Then the glue is just to strengthen it a little bit. And so I am doing a little of that, just testing that. I have a bigger piece that I'm working on as well. Actually, I could just show that it's right here. I just had some extra plaster left over. I wasn't planning on starting this one, but I have a piece of foam, which I actually used some plaster and plaster cloth on the top just to give it some texture. And I'm planning on using this for Savage Core as well. And so I'll be doing some of that stuff for the new year. Yeah, so a couple other things just before I get into the main topics. I am using my camcorder right now for the channel, but what I have actually gotten recently is this thing, which is a Hue camera, and it sits on like a coil stand, and yeah, it actually, I guess I could do a product review at one point. It's not really like wargaming specific, but I wanted something. I'm not so much into painting teaching videos. I still don't work on camera to do tutorials to paint. Like, it's not something that I really incorporate as part of the channel with my painting. But I do like to showcase miniatures, and I do like to showcase stuff that I've painted and show things close up. And so whether I just feature videos at one point where I do chats like this and I'm painting, it doesn't always fit with this format, because with this format I tend to be try to be a bit more focused and prepared for a series of topics. So I kind of go straight through, and I like to be pretty on point. I do ramble, but I like to be pretty focused even in my rambling and thinking, and I don't do detailed work like when I do these Heresy Hump days. But I could consider doing some videos where it's a bit more, not instead of this, but in addition to this format. Maybe some just paint-alongs where I'm just doing some painting and hanging out. But then there's going to be more gaps in conversation and just me focusing on things too. So whether I do stuff where I'm collaborating with others and I'm showing what I'm doing close up, or whether I do that kind of stuff, I wanted to just try and get a camera that would be good, a webcam with my new setup that would be good at showing things close up. I have tested this, and it has worked really nice. These cameras are actually geared towards classrooms and showing documents. So there's, like, if you search up document webcam, like this one will be one of the ones that comes up, because it has a really nice focus, and it has a manual focus on this right here. You can turn this and focus while you're even doing stuff. And so it was kind of neat. So it'll be a nice thing to feature in my videos in the future. And instead of this camera that's looking at me now, my camcorder, I'm hoping to incorporate a webcam on a fixed tripod. So I don't have like some of the cables that I have here for power. And then also, I could fix these things and still probably use the camcorder with a nicer desktop tripod. But like even my tripod I have, if I even tap that camera, sometimes the thing falls when I'm trying to... when I used to go back and forth from table down and stuff, like the camera would fall and I'd be like swearing in the background, as I'm trying to get this thing back right in a good position. I just want to have like a fixed webcam that I can flip on, that's got my cables connected to my computer, and I'm going to have my 2-window capability with these two things here. So that's kind of stuff that I'm working on for the channel. It's funny because I don't advertise on all my videos. I do on most of them. Use the YouTube Partner Program with just the advertisements. But like I've said in the past, you don't really, at my level of a channel, get anything substantial. Like, I've been doing it since March and I've not made any money off of it yet, so that kind of gives you an idea. But I am due for a payment coming up, and I am overdue, actually, for a payment. I should be getting paid a little bit soon, and so that would actually pay for 2 webcams, that first payment from March to December. And even though I spend much more money on my hobby, that amount of money and like what I'm spending here, like, it's almost insignificant compared to what I spend a year. It's nice to justify, like, when you do get something from what you do on the channel with the advertisements to be able to say, like, well, I am going to put it towards this that I want to do to improve the channel. So that is kind of nice. Gosh, I should invest in some lighting too. I always find that I'm way shiny, like with all my lights that I have on here. Being bald actually is part of that too, but okay. Having said that, little joke, but anytime the subject of minoxidil or any of these like hair growth things come up, I work in healthcare, by the way, so it actually can come up sometimes, but it's really funny. I'm the first person that I'm the one that will say, like, you're really asking the wrong person, because I just love these days to be able to just cut my own hair real quick. It's just something that I've had some awesome barbers over the years when I used to have hair, and I loved when I found a really good barber, always going to the same barber and having a great barber. But I moved cities a lot, and one of the worst things in the world for me was going to a new barber when I used to have hair. It was very stressful. And so now just this idea that I just every like 3 weeks just pull out the clippers and buzz my head, I wouldn't have it any other way. I love being bald. Which is kind of funny because that's not really like the norm for society, you know, but I actually wouldn't take it any other way at this point. So I joke around quite a bit about that, quite openly. Okay, so I have a paper here because I have a number of things I wanted to talk about over, sorry for that little segue, but I wanted to talk about reflection over the past year gaming. So one of the first things that I would start with is the Marvel game. So for those of you that have been watching the channel for the last year, maybe you even joined the channel for the Marvel game, and maybe you even stayed after I stopped the Marvel game because of Night Models canceling it. The Marvel, I entered the year last year really excited about the Marvel Universe miniatures game and the Spider-Man miniatures game, just because I'm such a Marvel nut, and I really am kind of thankful for that. I really enjoyed, regardless of how it turned out, I really enjoyed that excitement, painting up those miniatures and really like kind of being a bit dreamy-eyed as to what like could happen, like what kind of characters could come out and like where this could really go with the game. And that of course led to a lot of disappointment when after 8 months they pretty much stopped communicating and stopped supporting the game. And so, you know, I reflected a lot on that when that happened, put out a video on it, and was really, really disappointed. But it's kind of funny because now that the year's over and now that some time has passed, my feeling on it is this. I've had a couple of people, both through YouTube and locally, that have asked to buy some, if not all, of my Marvel miniatures. And in all occasions I've said, like, really no, like I love these, like I love Marvel, like I could really not sell these to you, you know, because it just, I would never, like, whether it be the ones that I've painted or the ones that I'm looking forward to painting, I regard, like, playing the game is a great aspect to it, you know, it's what I've really definitely got into it for, but now that I have the miniatures and I've painted them, and even with the ones that I haven't painted yet, like, I love them so much that I couldn't actually sell them. And so what that tells me is that it was a good thing. Even though it didn't turn out the way I wanted it to, when I look at the miniatures I got out of it, the fun that I had painting them, and then even thinking back to the excitement of what could have been, and what can be in the future when if somebody else gets the license someday. Maybe it'll be in 20 years, and, like, who knows. But, so the Marvel thing had its ups and downs. It was definitely a product of, for me, of 2017. It was definitely a thing for that year. And in the end, now that we're kind of going into the new year, I do look back at it somewhat positive still, as a positive thing, that it outweighs the negative. So yeah. So then, I wanted to talk a little bit about Musket and Tomahawks, because Musket and Tomahawks is a core game for the channel and my gaming, and my painting and everything. French Indian War is I say this over and over, but it is my favorite historical period to game in. And so I'm pretty happy with the Musket and Tomahawk stuff I've done this year. You know, particularly when you compare it to the amount of time I spent on some other historical areas. I still got at least a couple of bat reps in. I think it's 3 that I published on YouTube. I explored with some new things this year: the boats, rivers, and then also using bows as well. That is something that's happened where my opponents use them, and we've talked about it, and I have other stuff coming out even before the year ends in regards to that. And so painting-wise, I did do a little bit for Musket and Tomahawks, and I really enjoyed those Indians that I painted. And yeah, so I guess with the amount that I've done this year with Musket and Tomahawks, before I go into Sharps practice, this kind of leads right into that. I'll just mention that on Facebook, I did see where someone has claimed that they got directly from Studio Tomahawk this idea that 2nd edition is coming out for Musket and Tomahawks, or it's in the works, I should say. That's exciting to me because it is a favorite game of mine. I know some folks that, I think even in the comments, if you follow the comments, Osterwolf has just bought the 1st edition. I would say it's a really good thing that they come out with the 2nd edition, that it does need it, but having said that, the first rule set is a really good rule set, and it may be significantly different when they come out with the 2nd one, so it is nice to have that first one. And having said that, the main thing I was going to say is I'll believe it when I see it, because they've been talking about Shakos and Bayonets as a Musket and Tomahawks version 2 for a while now, and it's in the works, and that can mean in 5 years, that we're playtesting it, and we have like a lot of other stuff going on, and we are going to eventually do it. Now, one of the things that may lead to them doing it sooner is the fact that you can no longer get the rulebook anymore, like it's out of print, and so that may be an impetus to actually release the 2nd version. No matter what happens, I think it's a good thing for them to support the game and to come out with a 2nd edition. I've talked about this before, but I really do hope that it focuses on French-Indian War and doesn't go down the Napoleonic route. If it combines the both together, that's fine. It's just that leaves even more reason to have that 1st edition, because the 1st edition is just living and breathing French-Indian War. I mean, from the comments from characters on the bottom and the sides of the pages that are talking about things going on. Like, they'll talk about movement or shooting, and then they'll have like a character from the French-Indian War saying, yeah, when I was up there shooting, at these guys, like a little story. Even the rules themselves are just so French-Indian War focused that it's such a great thing to have the 1st edition, the book, and if they do change it to Shakos and Bayonets, and they sort of dilute it down, which is the way the sort of Sharp practice kind of went. I mean, it was started out with Napoleonics, but then they incorporated French-Indian War, American War of Independence, and it does dilute the historical period in some ways within the book, like if you actually cover multiple periods in some ways. Definitely compared to the way the 1st edition was done for Musket and Tomahawks, is just so nice. And so, yeah, I don't know that I'll be publishing as much battle reports in the near future for Musket and Tomahawks, just because I've done some this year, and I have other stuff going on for both historical and non-historical. And that kind of gets into Sharps practice. I don't feel like I've done enough Sharps practice in 2017. I remember distinctly sitting here in this room and doing a video like this last year, where I was thinking, like, this is the year of Sharps practice, because I got a couple of games in, really liked it. I'm definitely hoping to do more Sharps practice in 2018, just as a ability to just get more game time in for that. In order to do that, I do want to flesh out my armies a little bit more on both sides, hoping to get some Minden miniatures placed in order this year, and get more British regulars and more French regulars. Just their standard line troops, they kind of have fixed figures. Toy soldiers, kind of like, and so they're not all like multi-pose, they're kind of single pose, except for sort of like the command. And so I'm hoping, because I've never bought those packages, I've always used like, my British regulars are the Warlord ones. I've always wanted to get the Minden to match some of my other Minden stuff too. And so definitely looking at doing some more painting for French-Indian War, and I'm looking at incorporating more Sharps practice into some of the channel time. That's not to say I won't do a Musket and Tomahawk battle report. Love the game. It's an easy pickup game for me because I just love it so much. But I would like to try some of the other, and that's been a bit of a disappointment that I just haven't done enough of that this year, and I probably need to read the rules again because of that. It's been that long since I've had a game. Yeah, Age of Sigmar. I feel good that I got a number of Age of Sigmar games in this late summer and fall. A couple of different opponents. All the work that I did that took me a long time to paint up all those goblins, I feel was well worth it, because I've had a lot of fun playing some of the Age of Sigmar game, but then I've also used them in other rule sets, and I plan on still using them for some of the traditional Warhammer Fantasy, so that's really been, like, from a painting project, well worth it. I don't know what to say about Age of Sigmar in the sense that I had fun with it, and I plan on continuing to play it with friends. It's a great, fun, fast game to just play. I really like the open war card system where they randomize sort of each experience in a game. You just flip down a few cards and each one of them determines a facet of the game, and it makes it really hard to play the same game twice. So I really enjoyed that. It has some of the GW flavor of, like, what's coming out next, like what's the next codices to come out, or, you know, battle book. How is it going to affect the game for everybody else? And, you know, like, there's a certain amount of it that is a moving target when you play Age of Sigmar that I've never been a huge fan, even with, like, 40k, like, I've never been a huge fan of that. And so, yeah, like, I guess it's not the biggest draw of a game that I've played this year, but it is fun, and I do plan on continuing with it. And so, definitely, it's really, like, the only GW game that I can think of that I've invested in heavily at all, or any significant amount this year. And so that's interesting. You know, it was nice to scratch the fantasy itch with a little bit with that one. BattleTech, I had a lot of fun, like, kind of getting into it. With a lot of games, I tend to pick things up, and sometimes I either immerse myself in them, or I play, like, a few games and then set it down and say, let's stop there, let's play the next one, and we'll come back to this. And when we come back, maybe we'll consider doing this, this, and this, like expanding on it. And that's kind of where BattleTech falls in. I've enjoyed it. I do think I need to explore the game some more and continue playing it, and I'm planning on it. But I didn't really, like, overly immerse myself. Like, after playing a few games, I kind of set it down, and with the idea that I would actually pick it up again. It was fun, and so I do plan on playing a bit more BattleTech, and so that was fun, a good aspect of this year. Now, the end of the year, I did actually come up to a couple of games that were really, really fun. One of them being Dragon Rampant, and one of them being DBA. I do plan on playing those again in 2018. Now, in the case of Dragon Rampant, I've been using goblins, like my goblins that I use for Age of Sigmar, and I've really enjoyed it. There's been a little bit to figure out. It's a fairly simple rule set overall, but in the way the lists are designed and some of the special abilities in Dragon Rampant, like particularly the undead, my opponent and I kind of did a little bit of tweaks to the way they've done their undead in the lists. And it's actually worked out pretty good in the last game. I think both of us felt that it was a bit more balanced in the way that we kind of made a couple of changes. And I think that I'll continue playing that. I'm really seeing Dragon Rampant as a fun, fast-paced, go-to game, quick game for my Old Hammer Fantasy miniatures. And so, really, I think I spoke in a recent video about it, so I don't think I need to really elaborate more on that. But I see more of that, and playing more of that is something I'll be doing in the future. And then the DBA, I've always used my opponent's miniatures for that. I've just had a few games. I've actually acquired an India army, the India nation, Egyptian, early Germans, and Vikings. And so none of these have been painted yet. Some of them haven't been assembled, some of them have been primed, but I bought these, or excuse me, I was actually given these by a friend, and which was extremely courteous of them. And I'll be painting those up, and I'll probably, the largest one is the India Army, and I think I'm going to focus on that one first for painting and getting it ready. I'm looking at reading the rules again and trying to absorb it more over Christmas holiday. So yeah, I'll be looking at that. So that's something I'll definitely be doing in the new year. Before I get into more gaming that I'm looking at doing in the new year, I wanted to just mention a couple of things that I wanted to do again for next year. At one point this year, I had said that I wanted to focus more on painting for fun, like just painting things that I want to paint, and not just stuff that I'm using for gaming. I still got sucked into a drive to paint things primarily for gaming. Although having said that, I've done a number of projects that still were focused more towards the painting side. One of them was the Old Hammer month that I did for the Rogue Trader stuff that works. So that was mainly painting like a collection that I've just wanted to paint, and I have more to do for that, but I really enjoyed that. And then even because I played a fair bit of Saga in the spring, but I kind of took some time off of the rest of the year of it. And so when I painted my Flemish Mercenaries, it was mainly just to paint something I wanted to paint, something I wanted to get done, and not so much just to get them on the table. Like, I still haven't used them. And so that was really great. Like, I enjoy being able to do stuff just because I want to do it, not because I feel pressured because I'm going to use it for a game. And so I want to do more of that. I've already talked to Hellcrux about maybe doing another kind of Old Hammer project. And he was talking about Eldar, and I have some Eldar to paint. So I'm looking at maybe this spring we might cooperate, anybody else that wants to join, and doing a bit of an Old Hammer painting project again. And so that would be something that I would do just because I want to. I have some Marvel stuff that I want to paint just because I want to paint it, not because I'm using it for a game. And then also, I even have an Infinity model I was thinking I'd really like to paint. One of the, I think that, it's been a while since I played, but I think it's called a tag, like the style of, they're like basically the big kind of robots that they have in the game, and I wanted to paint one of those. And so I'm looking at trying to incorporate a little bit more painting just for fun. I talked a little bit about the Old Hammer already, like doing the Eldar, possibly even more orcs, but in particular, even before that, I want to do some Old Hammer fantasy, and I have a number of things coming up for that I'd like to talk about. I think I've been reading the Warhammer Fantasy 3rd edition rulebook. I did acquire one of those, and I also have an electronic copy, and so I'm going to kind of feature that on the channel and show that, at least my hardcover book that I purchased, and talk a little bit about the rule set. For a while there, I was reading it really just for fun. I'm not really big into reading rules for fun. Like, I have plenty of friends that love to read rule books because they just enjoy it. Like, they enjoy reading rule books. I prefer to paint, to be honest. I do get entertained to some degree with reading rules, but it's not my favorite part of the hobby, just to read rule books. But in the case of the Warhammer Fantasy 3rd edition, it was a lot of fun to just sort of read a little bit of it every day. I was kind of reading it. I would sit down for a few minutes and just take a section and just read it. And I found it a bit therapeutic, and even sort of a little, I don't know the way to say it, but because I was thinking about what I'd like to do with the rules, and some solo gaming and some other stuff too, it was a bit mind-opening as to what the possibilities could be when looking back to like a book that was created in 1987 that really was a bit more open compared to some of the stuff today by Games Workshop, and how you could utilize the rules and play like within that universe. And so I really sat there, and it was very kind of therapeutic, from like a relaxing and just creative process as to how I was going to approach it. And so I will talk more about that in the new year. That'll be something that will be a long-term ongoing thing that I'll likely feature painting and aspects to gaming on the channel. Two big ones that I've been mentioning recently for the new year is going to be Mordheim. I don't know that I'm going to be doing battle reports for Mordheim, but you'll definitely see some of the painting. I'll give you some of the gaming updates, maybe even pictures. I'm not committing to doing battle reports at this point for it, but we are looking at doing a campaign in the beginning of the year, a couple of friends. And so that will definitely be something that I'll be kicking the year off with in January. And as well, at the same time, Savage Core. I am actually going to be doing bat reps for Savage Core, and I'm really looking forward to that. And so there'll be more painting and bat reps for Savage Core on the channel in the new year. So yeah, that'll be great. You know, not to go on a tangent, but I find it difficult to commit to doing bat reps for every game I play, because with a video like this, you can probably get a sense. I know there are people that play a lot more games than I do, but I play a fair bit of games. I do try out. I would say I try out a fair bit of games, and trying out often means a certain amount of investment. But whether it be from a knowledge perspective or while you're gaming, because even the biggest YouTube channels that cover games, like, let's say, Mini Wargaming, they devote videos to, like, rules we got wrong. And there are mistakes that happen. And so it's not just about producing a good video, but it's also about just being competent when you're doing bat reps. And when I play a lot of different stuff, like, I can't be competent in all of them enough to do bat reps. Like, that's the way I feel about it. There are some people that are very good at that. I guess, is it called Guerrilla Miniature Gaming or Guerrilla Gaming? He covers, like, lots of different types of games and has been in the industry, and you know, he's very good at doing a lot of different material well on his channel, and I think that's one of the reasons why he's really successful. I tend to try to stick to just a couple of things with bat reps just for that reason. And so depending on how it goes, I can always change, but what I'll do a bat rep on, but for now, like, I just kind of pick certain ones and then I include them. Kind of talked about DBA and Dragon Rampant and Warhammer Fantasy. One of the big things for next year for me is Saga 2nd Edition. I really enjoy Saga. I find it to be a really fun game, and I also really enjoy the painting in the Dark Ages. Like, it's something that I picked up and I quickly enjoyed the game, but I kind of slowly got into, you know, painting and collecting it. I just kind of came in with, like, an initial investment of a warband. But I'm planning on doing more, like, oopsie, there you go. Hang on one second. Sorry about that. That's why I want a webcam. I don't think it's ever happened on camera where I have moved the camera because my leg is touching the power line here. But that's why I want to improve my setup a bit. Live action, a live fail. I'm not gonna edit that out. I'll leave it in. So, Saga 2nd Edition, you know, I really enjoy Saga, as I was saying, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do with it. It's kind of similar to Musket and Tomahawks, because I like the initial product so much, and it's been a while since it's come out. I really like the direction they're going with releasing, like, another edition and starting from scratch to try to improve, in their mind, like, the core aspects of the game, certain things that they couldn't change once they've been expanding on it with other books. They couldn't change their root book, and so I'm really interested to see what they're going to do with that. So that's something that I'll definitely be incorporating into the channel this year as well. And I'll likely do battle reports with 2nd Edition, just as I did some battle reports with the 1st Edition. And so I would like to incorporate Saga on the channel from a battle report perspective this year. Just hoping that it's pretty soon that they come out with the 2nd Edition. So, I think the last thing... I'll take another sip here. I think the last thing I want to just talk about is Adeptus Titanicus, or Titanicus, by Games Workshop. I've been in a 40k funk for a while now, and 40k, Warhammer 40k Games Workshop is it is what got me into the miniature gaming hobby again, after taking a lot of time off my initial exposure to wargaming. I'm not a wargamer going back forever. Like, there are a lot of guys my age that have just been doing it nonstop for like 20 years, 30 years in most cases. I'm somebody that picked it up again in 2011 when I just had some initial exposure to actual wargaming. I had enough that I really got into Space Marines and like Games Workshop and stuff for the video games, like after having played it when I was in the Rogue Trader days when I was really young, but then took like a huge time off. And so I came back into the hobby and really gung-ho, reading like a lot of the Warhammer 40k stuff, and basically after playing a couple of editions, I started to just get tired of certain aspects of it and look for other things, and that's kind of where I got into some of the historicals and considered some other alternative fictional games. I haven't really had a strong desire to get back into proper Warhammer 40k, and I still don't really. Like, I've always kind of maintained that I will come back to it in the future at one point, but for the beginning of my channel, it was the main fixture, and then it became sort of a dual-pronged channel where I had Musket and Tomahawks and Warhammer 40k, and those were my two focuses for the channel. It's really blown up into just my wargaming hobby now, with certain games that are just core games to the channel and to my hobbying. So I wouldn't say I feel bad, like that I don't have the 40k stuff on the channel or that I'm not really doing much of it anymore, but I do. Despite liking metal models, and you guys know I love the old stuff and I love working with metal models, new stuff, historical stuff, I still like to work with plastic kits, and I still like to see the stuff that GW is coming out with. I do love their stuff. I think it's beautiful model kits. And, you know, they make good products. Now, I can't even count the amount of things that I've passed up, you know, and not buying in the last couple of years from GW. One of them that I thought was really good, I always kind of wondered whether I should have got into it, was the Silver Tower Warhammer Quest. That seemed to be like a really good release, and you know, that one might have been fun to get into. I just didn't, and didn't spend the money on it, didn't get into it. And then there have been a lot of others. I mean, there's been recently the Necromunda, there's been the gosh, I can't even think of all of them, to be honest, but there's Blood Bowl, which looked like a lot of fun and seemed to do really well. Like, they did really well with it. And there's the Shadespire. There's one that was like, it was very similar to Necromunda, but it wasn't the gangs, you know, and I forget the name of it. Also looked kind of good, but I just really wasn't into getting back into 40k at the time when it came out, and so there have been a number of other releases that I've passed up on. So release after release after release, lots of things that I've just not spent money on. And so I wouldn't say I'm looking to spend my money like on something from Games Workshop. Even my Age of Sigmar, I got a number of models used. I didn't buy all of it new. I did lay down a couple $100s on models, but not nearly as much as I could have. You know, like for any other game, that would have been like a huge starting chunk of money, but for this, you can spend that easily. So I'm not really sure, like I'm not looking to spend money on plastic kits and just like, oh, I need to go down there and get some plastic crack. It's not the case, but I do sort of like to look at the shiny, and I've passed up on a lot of things. And they announced, I guess it was around this time last year, or even a little before, they showed some things. I think it was the Forge World Open, but they started talking about Adeptus Titanicus. Now, I never played Epic. You know, when Epic was out, it was during a time when I wasn't playing. For the most part, I wasn't, like, wargaming. I don't know how much was being released in 2011 when I got back into it, but I never played, like, the original Titanicus or Space Marine. And so it's not really like my time. And when I got into Warhammer again, there were people. There were still people that play Epic locally here in Calgary. But when I got back into Warhammer again, I saw some people playing that. I looked at it and I was like, well, that's not my scale. Like, I was pretty set on 28mm. Only recently with DBA have I even considered smaller miniatures. I bought into Drop Zone Commander and I sold it pretty quickly. Like, I didn't even paint any of it. And scale was a factor to it. I just couldn't get into it overall. But now, you know, after playing DBA and having fun with that, I don't expect this game to be like DBA, but after playing that and seeing the small miniatures and doing it for gaming, I had already took an interest in some of the models that they showed in some of these Games Workshop or shows, like, and the Titans. I'll throw a picture up just to show kind of, or should I say that way? just to show like one of the big ones that they showed. So there's a number of aspects to this as to why I'm interested in it. Scale, it's interesting to me. Like now I'm kind of interested in this idea of like a sort of epic game where, you know, you could have like these really large, like after playing BattleTech, like these really large monstrous titans like towering over cities and duking it out. And I read all of the Horus Heresy stuff, so I'm completely in tune with that, having read stories where all this stuff has happened. But then the idea of possible tanks later and infantry they've talked about, depending on how well the game does, that really grabs me more. Like, I could see getting an entry-level box to try the core rules for the Titans, which they're promising right away, but I'm really stoked about the idea of maybe having a bit of an epic-style game landscape with the Titans and other stuff. I love the fact that it's in the Horus Heresy. They are already, you know, there's been rumblings with folks asking the authors on Facebook or the author about the possibility of Xenos and things like that, and it seems like it's all probably based on how well it does. It initially was going to just be resin offered by Forge World, but it's probably a good thing, but it was supposed to come out this year, like they've announced it a while ago, but they held it back, and a lot of people, or what the author of the game said, is the success of Blood Bowl and people getting into specialist games and the kind of how well they did made them hold back the release and actually retool it for plastic kits. Now, for those of you that are really into understanding how the technology works for miniature production, it's a huge deal to have something ready for resin or metal, but then to switch gears and go for a plastic mold and then do it for plastic. And they have actually committed to that, is my understanding. And so that's actually really cool. Like it's allowed them to do more sculpting and to, potentially, and to do plastic kits to really make a broader commitment, I think, to the game. And so that has me kind of excited. As much as I love resin and metal, in this case, I'm kind of excited that they're actually going with plastic and what that could mean for it. And so, you know, it's easy for me because I'm quick to just not do stuff. Like, I'm easily just don't buy stuff that Games Workshop does. Like, I easily taken a pass on lots of things. But I'm kind of getting excited about this, and this may be the year. Like, I think what they're saying is they do expect that it's likely I think the rumblings and the rumors are that it likely is going to be probably 2018. And so, yeah, the other thing is plastic terrain. Apparently, it's probably going to come in a box, I'm hearing, with plastic buildings or plastic terrain. I think that's awesome. I'm really excited about that. And so, yeah, like that, I wonder what you guys think. Like, how many of you guys out there that watch the channel are into Epic, into the original Titanicus Space Marine style game? Are you guys really excited about this release coming out? Apparently it's going to be somewhat based on those games, but the rules are revamped a bit, so it's going to be a thing of its own as well. They apparently are going to, with the Titans at least, have a style of game, for those of you familiar with the background of 40K and Horus Heresy with the Titans. You know, the machine spirit that sort of occupies these huge machines that the pilots deal with will have its own sort of, I'm not going to call it AI, but there's like an experience where if you do certain things and the machine spirit tends to think otherwise or has issues with that, like you'll have to do dice rolls, and at times it's going to fight you even as the pilot in what you're trying to do. Either it might really be anxious to get into combat, and if you hold back, you might not be able to hold it back, or other things, like if you do something that puts it in danger, you know, or something like that. So that is kind of interesting too, as to how those rules will go. I did kind of wonder, depending on how in depth they go with the Titan rules, it sounds like there's a certain amount of depth to it, how much room that will leave for general mechanics for the rest of the game and all the other infantry and tanks. So I find that interesting too. But I like the idea of the visuals of the Titans on the battlefield, and I didn't mention it, but Epic used to be in 6mm was the scale. My understanding is that they've actually bumped it up a bit, so this game will be an 8mm, so it's going to be a little bit bigger. The Warlord Titan, which is like the most monstrous walking city, you know, like in the lore and all this stuff. I think they have a Warlord Titan model. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe that's a different one. But GW did release a big Titan model in the last year or so. But the Warlord Titan is supposed to be the size of a 28mm Imperial Knight. You know, it's like the one I did, that painting. That painting project I did around this time last year, I believe. And so that's interesting to me because the Knight is actually, Imperial Knight's a good sized model, but when you're talking about 8mm, that thing would be huge. And so that really leaves a lot of room for some nice big models of the other Knights too, like they won't be too small. And really some nice painting opportunities, like I think I'd love that. So yeah, I don't know what you guys think. It's funny. For those of you guys that have watched the channel for a while, you might remember, like, I'm kind of oftentimes more into the smaller conflict, like Kill Team, where there's like a narrative generated and that the power levels are not like blown up too much. That, you know, like the idea of a War Walker, like on the table is like a little Titan. You know, I think I said that in a video once. You know, like your Space Marines would see like a War Walker as something really powerful to contend with. And the Kill Team games and the smaller sort of narrative style games really lend to that, and I like that. But I almost find, like with this, I'm a different appeal. Like I'm kind of enjoying the idea of this really mass battle landscape for 40K. Maybe this is the thing that will draw me back into feeding my 40K hunger, because I've got like my paintings on the wall, and I've got, you know, I love it. I read the books. I just read a book recently, and I'm in the middle of another one, like of Warhammer's 40K universe. I just kind of abandoned the game for a while, and so I'm interested in your guys' thoughts as well. Don't know, as usual, how long this is going. I'm really not far even into my beer because I've been talking so much, but this is sort of my holiday video. I hope you guys have had a really great Christmas holidays with your families. And that you do have a great New Year, because I don't believe when you're watching this it will be New Year's yet. And so I will see you in the New Year. This will likely be my last video until the New Year arrives. And take care, everybody.